So this video is called my brutally unpopular opinions for a reason, so I'm not rage baiting you. So if your opinions are different to me, that's fine, leave them in the comments. I politely ask, let's just keep this chilled. It's just a video game and it's not that deep. So the sentiment online is that Dawn Trail sucked, and honestly, I don't understand what people are talking about. Of all of the Final Fantasy XIV packs, I feel like Dawn Trail is the first one that actually feels like a proper adventure. The storyline is so different to the other ones. Instead of just rinsing and repeating the same kind of thing that they've done over and over again, but in a slightly different way, we've been taken to a very different world with a very different culture and a very different storyline. I'll be honest, I feel like the game went downhill quite a bit after Heavensward, but I truly felt like Dawn Trail was the first pack in ages where I felt like they've actually done something really different here with the story, and I really liked it. And I honestly hope that they continue to go down the path of being a little bit different in the future and making every pack feel more like a fun adventure. On the contrary to everything I said about my first point, I have a lot of issues with the story of Final Fantasy XIV, and I think the reason why this is unpopular is because everybody plays it for the story. What's the difference between Final Fantasy and WoW? Final Fantasy has an impeccable storyline, and that is true. It does have a great story, but for someone like me, it's really, really difficult to follow. I normally enjoy this story when we first start off, but then it starts getting into almost side questy nature for me. I feel like they spend a lot of the budget on the cutscenes and the voice acting to begin with, and then there's this whole middle bit where they don't really have the voice acting, they just have the generic cutscenes, and you're normally just doing generic fetch quests or helping out random people for what seems like no reason. I feel like Final Fantasy XIV suffers from a lot of filler content, and what normally happens with me, I don't know if anyone else does this, when a new pack comes out, I watch every single cutscene and I enjoy it, and then we get to the middle bit and then it starts entering fetch quest territory and main scenario quests feeling like side quests, and then I start skipping everything and then I start to lose track of the story. So I just think I'm gonna skip all of this shit and I'm just gonna watch a YouTube video when it's all over explaining the story, because I just can't handle it anymore. This happens to me every single time a pack comes out and it's so annoying. Apart from Dawn Trail, I must say, because as I said before, I enjoyed Dawn Trail. I did skip a bit of I forgot the name of the world, but you know, that like the Wild West area, I'll put it on the screen. That part felt a bit side questy to me, but other than that, the rest of it was great. But I just feel like in general, the storyline is quite hard for me to follow, where you have these big explosive moments, but then you have these really irrelevant moments, but sometimes like very relevant things are in these like low budget cutscenes, the kind of ones that you just want to skip past, and then I just find the pacing can be really, really bad. Feel free to dislike the video because I know most of you will at this point. So the whole point of an MMO is that you're playing with a lot of other people. I personally play with a friend, just one friend. Other than that, I really just don't play with anybody else. I guess in real life, like I have a busy social life, I don't have the time to meet brand new people online. And I personally just don't like meeting people online anyway. I'm more of like a touch grass kind of person. I solemnly believe we should all be touching more grass, meeting people in real life, which is what I try to do. So I find it difficult to meet people in the game, to be honest, and as a result, I also find it really difficult to enjoy a lot of the mechanics, especially things like the savage raids or the extreme trials, which are so much harder when you're solo queuing, because you can guarantee nobody else in there has bothered to Google the strategy beforehand, so nobody's on the same page, nobody knows what they're doing. It's the same with treasure maps. I love doing treasure maps, but I can only do the older ones unsynced because I'm not playing with a party of other players. I definitely enjoy the multiplayer element of it. Of course, I love doing the dungeons and things with other players, especially when you're playing with other people who have good banter and stuff. And in many ways, I think they need to start introducing more multiplayer things. For example, with the Heavensward pack, they had the Ishgardian restoration, which was like a collective effort of everyone coming together to fix it. And they haven't really done anything like that for ages. I definitely think there's a lot of room for multiplayer, but I also think think it shouldn't be a barrier to those who enjoy the single player experience. And for me, I feel like sometimes it is a barrier. This is just a small one, but this guy's not cool. He's not sexy. I don't know why you're all gooning over this guy. That's just a small one that I wanted to throw in here. I used to really enjoy the events in Final Fantasy XIV, and over the last few years, they have objectively gotten worse, and I actually researched this a lot online for a previous video, and I found that there was actually a huge drop in the quality of the events over the last few years, and I just feel like they're not putting as much effort into making the game feel fun anymore, especially with packs taking a little bit longer and content being a bit more stretched. I feel like the events are more important than ever to get right. Yeah, I feel like they're just not bothering with them as much anymore, and I just find it very disappointing. So outside of Final Fantasy XIV, I'd probably say my favorite video game franchise of all time is Legend of Zelda. And in all of the Zelda games, but particularly Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, it takes less than 30 seconds to find an object of interest in the world. There's actually a reason to explore the world. There's actually an incentive to find all of the different secret areas and see what they hold. In Final Fantasy XIV, there really is no incentive to explore the world outside of the storyline. In fact, once you've completed the tedious task of collecting the ether currents, most of us just fly up high in the air on our mounts, ignoring the world in order to get to the next quest point, because there is no reason to stay in the world. And yes, there are some people who play this game and enjoy taking screenshots and things and doing like mini photo shoots in the world, and that's fantastic for you. It's just not for me personally, and I just feel like the only thing you can really do in the world is like the mining and the botany and the fishing, but then you're focusing on that rather than focusing on the world. I just feel like there needs to be more fun and enjoyment to be had in the worlds themselves in order to actually make them feel more alive and give you more incentive to explore them outside of the main story. Because sure, they're big and expansive, it's just there's nothing to do in them, and I just don't like it. And I genuinely don't understand why other people aren't complaining about this as much as me, because I rarely ever do see people complaining about it, but it's one thing I do honestly hate about this game, and honestly I think contributes to it feeling a little bit lonely. One thing that I do see other people complain about all the time is dungeon design, how every single dungeon is just like a linear tunnel. As a tank, you're supposed to pick up all of the mobs and drag them all into a corner so everybody can just kill them all quickly, and then you run off and move on to the next point. And I often do see a lot of people complain about that, but honestly, I feel like they should be doubling down on this, because what you see in games like WoW, or even the more recent Fellowship game that I've been playing recently, is it's all about seeing how many points you can score by killing as many enemies as possible and seeing how quickly you can complete it. And really, I think it would be actually quite cool if they could actually double down on the linear elements of the dungeons in the games and maybe add some kind of score point system in order to keep people coming back and doing them over and over again. I definitely think they have a good formula with the dungeons, and I don't really want them to mix it up too much. I mean, they already tried with variant dungeons and they turned out to be not that popular. Barely anybody does them anymore. I personally really like the way current dungeons are, and I really hope in the future that they integrate a system like they do in like WoW or Fellowship, where there's more of like a score at the end. I think that'd be really cool. I just really like them as they are, and I don't want them to change. All of the Discord mods and the anime lords will most certainly cancel me for this one. I just don't like the Japanese voice acting. Everybody I know who plays this game plays it with the Japanese dub, and that's good for you. It's the authentic way. It's how it was supposed to be, whatever. I just feel like English is a very, very diverse language with how many people around the world are speaking it. You hear it in so many accents, and I just feel like you can pull off so much more variety in English than you can do with the Japanese dub, which is why why I prefer to listen to it in English. I've got no problem with Japanese. I lived in Japan for 2.5 years. I could have the Japanese dub and understand it perfectly fine. I just prefer English because I prefer the way it sounds, not because I'm an arrogant, privileged English speaker. It's just coming from the perspective of there's so many more accents and variety in their characters. That is all it is for me. Thank you very much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe. I will see you in the next one.